The love story between Bella Swan and Jacob Black in the Twilight saga is actually a lot more poetic than what the movies depicted and what the fans generally give it credit for. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying it's perfect. The way the relationship is portrayed does have a lot of faults, from the problematic tropes, character assassination, and even racist depictions. But at its core, I truly believe that there's something beautiful between the two characters, Bella and Jacob, that kind of gets glossed over. Not enough people really appreciate it for what it is. First and foremost, Jacob's only role in the saga is really to enhance the love story between Bella and Edward and make her love for him seem that much more deeper and profound. Funny enough, considering back then in the 2000s when Twilight was released and it gained all this popularity, there was all this talk about the love triangle, like who's Bella going to choose? Are you Team Edward, Team Jacob? And looking back at it, it's kind of funny how Twilight got this huge rep for the love triangle and being like a pioneer of the genre. And it really wasn't a love triangle because Stephanie Meyer, the author of the books, has made it abundantly clear that Bella was always going to choose Edward. So it was never really a choice. But it's exactly the fact that Jacob was never a real option that makes his relationship with Bella that much more poetic in my opinion. Jacob's persistence, while problematically overdone at times, it seems delusional and ungrounded. Watching the movies, I just kept on getting embarrassed for Jacob because he would try over again with Bella to get her to love and choose him. And at some point, it's like, bro, how many times you finna go through this until you realize she's just not that into you and it's just never going to happen. As the audience, we're just constantly seeing Bella reject Jacob's affection until we truly believe that she doesn't reciprocate his feelings at all. For a lot of the story, we see Bella holding Jacob at a distance where she's rejecting his desires of more while truly never sending him away altogether. Although she calls him her best friend multiple times and they're kind of in this friend zone, but then again not, because she says the relationship is so much deeper than a schoolyard romance. But then again, she does wish that Jacob was her brother so that they'll have some type of familial connection, so that she could stake this claim on him where she could still be around him and not feel guilty because she knows that he wants more. The fact is that she views Jacob as more than a best friend, and what they have together goes far beyond a platonic level. Their relationship is stuck in limbo as Jacob becomes this pseudo lover to Bella in order to fill in the void of intimacy that was created when Edward left. You remember Bella is stuck in this debilitating depression for months on end, where she's having nightmares every night. She's waking up screaming. She's not smiling. She's not laughing anymore. She's rarely eating. She's detaching herself away from the people in her life, such as her school friends and her dad Charlie. And she's just in this state of zombie Bella where literally all the life is just drained from her. That is, until she seeks out Jacob and brings him back into her life, and he's just this bundle of joy. He's always radiating positivity, and she describes him as her personal sun, where he's just lighting her up. He's just giving her life. He's making her smile and laugh and just generally look forward to living again and just being alive. There are multiple times where she catches herself not having to pretend to be alive when she's around him like she does with everyone else, because he's genuinely happy to see her. He's probably the only person in her life at this point who's just genuinely happy to be around her because he loves her so much. That's something that not even her school friends or her dad could do, because they're just looking at her with pity. They don't know how to help her. But here's just Jacob, who just comes into her life. Just being around him literally makes her feel better. Bella could never bring herself to push Jacob away because she needed him to be everything he was, as affectionate as he was, in order to feel again. Jacob's love for Bella literally brings her back to life. He's injecting her life with so much light and warmth at such a dark and cold time, where she's literally getting back her will to live again. And although we don't see Bella reciprocate his affection to the degree that he has with her, she does love Jacob, and she even falls in love with him romantically. It's just that she's been lying to herself about her love for Jacob because she loves Edward more, and she views her attraction and love for Jacob as a betrayal to her love to Edward. In the book, Bella refers to Edward and her as Romeo and Juliet, as this form of this ultimate love tragedy, where these two star-crossed lovers are just destined to be together and nothing will ever get in the way, not even fate or death, or in this case, not even her own best friend, who she later on admits that she's grown feelings for. So from this point on, Bella and Jacob aren't really a what if, they're framed as a what would have been. Bella and Jacob are what would have been if Bella never moved away from Forks and went to live with her mom when she was younger. They're what would have been if she never met Edward. They're what would have been if he never returned to Forks. And even if Edward did return to Forks eventually, Bella and Jacob are what would have been if he just waited a little bit longer. Ultimately, they're a hypothetical who at every turn is just one unfortunate choice away from becoming an actuality. And here's where the relationship dynamics become more abstract. Bella's love for Edward mirrors drug usage and substance abuse. She constantly refers to Edward as her drug, and she refers to the effect that he has on her as like drug inducing. And so her obsession really resembles an addiction. And when Edward leaves, his absence creates this depression in her, and it kind of resembles withdrawal. Bella's depicted as this ordinary girl who has a lot of insecurities about herself and her body. Her self-image isn't the best because she's constantly around these supernatural beings who she views as super gorgeous and super graceful. And so that causes a lot of comparisons in her mind where she's insecure about her clumsiness. She has 2 left feet. She thinks her looks are average. So she becomes terrified of her growing older and what beauty she thinks she does have withering away with time. And as a result, Bella is infatuated with this idea of becoming a vampire so that she can become immortal and she doesn't have to age. And those are all things that Edward can provide for her if he bites her, which does increases his overall appeal to her, whether she's actively aware of it or not. But the process of becoming a vampire, at least the way it's described in Carlisle's experience, is that someone is generally on the brink of death and they cross over from the state of living to the state of undead. And using this framework, we can view Bella's desire of becoming a vampire as a form of suicidal ideation. In order to become a vampire, your heart literally has to stop beating and you stop breathing. And so once we view Bella's actions through a suicidal lens, the parallels to Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet become more apparent. Bella is completely willing to give up her life in order to be with the love of her life. And by committing to Edward, she relinquishes everything of her past life, from her college aspirations, her school friends, her mom, her dad, and her best friend Jacob. And so if this is the case, Jacob represents everything that Bella could have had if she wasn't so psychologically damaged and self-destructive. If Edward was her drug, then Jacob was Bella's medicine. He pulls her from her depression, he stops her nightmares, he shows her how to smile and laugh again, and he just overall brings a lot of hope back into her life. Jacob's persistence in trying to get Bella to choose him represents life desperately clinging on to this suicidal girl and trying to prevent her from taking her own life. It works for a while, but her deep dissatisfaction with life eventually slips through the cracks of her fleeting happiness. It was always going to be Edward because death is inevitable. But for the briefest of moments, life was easy, it was warm, it was beautiful. Bella didn't have to pretend to be alive anymore. With Jacob, she just was. He brought out the absolute best in her, a temptation of something worth living for. If you want to understand my appreciation for the core of Bella and Jacob's love story in Twilight, it shares a lot of similarities with a much better written and executed story in this movie called Past Lives, which is one of my favorite movies of all time. It was released in 2023, written and directed by Swan, and a lot of how I view the tragicness in Bella and Jacob's story is very similar to the characters in Past Lives. Childhood friends are separated, and due to external factors that are out of their control, they never really get to embrace the romantic aspect of the relationship, even though they would have been perfect for each other in every way possible. As a Jacob fan, I'm not really that upset that he and Bella didn't end up together because their story is more poetic as is, but I'm just infuriated by the resolution that Stephenie Meyer gave his character. For such an integral character, to see Jacob relegated to what he was in the conclusion of the Twilight saga is one of the worst experiences I ever had in watching a movie. It was bizarre, it was inexplicable, no matter how much Stephenie Meyer tried to justify it, and something I will forever have beef with her about.